AI is going to help us ensure things are compliant, but it's not going to replace the actual overall strategy. And I don't think it ever will. Dealers who significantly cut their spend or reduced it completely compared to those who kept spending at the normal rates. When the world opened up again, when the dealerships opened up again, those who were spending all along were the ones who had the great sales. We really focus on conversion rate and cost per lead as our, I would say, core indicators of success. Total leads is important. Everybody's got first party data, and it's data that has been proven time and time again that when you use it in ad campaigns, it's highly successful. It improves performance.
Jeff, welcome to eCoffee with Experts. Good to have you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. You guys help car dealerships sell more cars. At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. And a big challenge that you likely see is audience data, like third-party data compared to first-party data. What do you spend your time thinking about these days, and what should others be spending more time thinking about? And maybe they're not.
Yeah, it's really, everybody's got first party data, and it's really thinking about how you can use it. Everyone knows they have this data. Everyone knows that there's some value to it, but they're not really applying it in ways that are beneficial. And this is data that, you own, that it's yours to use. It's data that you know exactly kind of what's included in it. And it's data that, has been proven time and time again that when you use it in ad campaigns, it's highly successful. It improves performance. It's something that everyone needs to be taking advantage of, because if you're spending money on digital advertising, which obviously many people are, you should want to get the best results. And it's being able to feed your campaigns with the best information. The best input is going to get you the best output. So that's really the kind of theme here is, take advantage of that first party data that you have and make sure that it's being used in as many places as it can be if you're spending money online to promote your products.
And you guys are getting first data, like primarily how? Is there like a top tier, second tier, third tier? Like what are the main ways that you're getting this data? And then if you can't get enough of it, or if one of our audience listeners can't get enough of their own first party data, what do they do?
Sure. I mean, there's obviously, different ways to access data. There's, your first party data that we'll talk about in a second. Then there's, third party sources as well. The problem I have with third party sources, I'm not saying that they're bad, but there's less transparency. You don't really know what you're getting. You are being told, whether it's through Google or Meta or through a third party vendor that you're purchasing data from, which, adds more cost. So you're getting an audience that has a title. It could be a group of something that sounds like it would make sense for your strategies. But you don't really know who's in that audience. You don't know if they're already current customers of yours. You don't really know if they're people who, might have been in that market and no longer are. There's just a lot of variables, and there's just a lot less transparency. With your first party data though, from an automotive dealer perspective, we've got all of the data that we're collecting from the website. And that's, when it's first party, you can collect that information versus, Google or Meta or anyone else who's being could be blocked by, different tools that exist on websites, or certain browsers are, blocking these cookies unless you're opting in. The first party data though is being captured. So we're capturing more of an audience already just from the website. Other sources are your CRM, your prospect list, who is already in market, who's already looking for vehicles, and that who they are, their names, their email addresses, something about them, what types of vehicles they've already looked for or when they're potentially going to be buying. So that's another option. And then the third option that we consume is the transactions. What was the last purchase? A vehicle purchase? Was it, a repair order? How many repair orders have they had? When is their lease up? When is their, finance? How long is their financing? How much credit do they have? Or how much, do they have invested in the vehicle at this time? So this is all information that about these consumers. So when you combine those three types of data, you're building or able to build, really solid audiences that, again, who's in there, what they're looking for, when they're ready to buy. And it's going to be a lot more powerful to target those consumers online because you know a lot more about them to start with.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I know you have a big team, and a big side of it is like paid media, earned media. Are you talking like if you're running an ad, let's say a Meta ad or an Instagram ad, just so I can understand, you can either do it where Instagram pops up and you fill out a form on the Instagram pop-up, or you go to the actual website and then there's a form on the website? Is that the difference between first and third party?
Not really. I mean, when we're collecting information, whether it's, specifically, on that, Meta form or on the website, regardless,
Mm,
that information is going to be captured within the CRM. So that will
okay,
become first party data, regardless of how it's captured.
got it.
The method or avenue how it's captured obviously varies and helps. For example, the conversion. If it's a on Facebook form, typically you give a higher conversion rate, but the quality may not be as high. Typically, when they take the time to fill out a form on that website itself, it's very high quality. It's someone who definitely wants to get contacted,
Mm,
contact
mm.
away.
Got it. Yeah, thanks for helping me clarify that. Like I said, I'm not the deep dive guy. That's why I have conversations with awesome folks like you to help me understand that. So a lot of what you guys do in L2T Media is you're running your services as a product, or you're basically doing a product as a service or vice versa. How are you seeing leadership in like your role changing with AI? I guess just I don't know if we want to go down the social side of things of like Gen Z and millennials and everything, but like how are you seeing product management change with all these like in this new world, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, AI is a huge factor, and it's going to be a big, I don't want to say problem, but a challenge moving forward.
Mm,
There's a couple of ways that we have to look at it. One, our clients, they know what they read or they know what they hear, and a lot of it is, you should be able to do more because of AI, or why should I pay so much because you don't have to do anything now because of AI? And that's
mm,
not the case. There are clearly, jobs in the future that are, I would say, at risk because of AI.
mm-hmm,
But any job like that requires strategy requires a human element, because AI can do so much. AI can, if you tell it to create a certain type of ad or write certain content, yeah, all know that could be done, and it does a great job. But knowing things like what the current market conditions are for car buyers, or understanding, like, in a specific dealership, what their needs are. Is it to sell more used cars, more new cars? Is it to sell specific models? That's always changing. And that's something that, we take, a lot of pride in making sure we understand that with our clients,
mm,
because we build our strategies around, what the dealer needs are at the given time. AI, will know some of those things and can be, taught or trained to know some of those things. But I think it's going to be in the future a combination of, automation, which is going to help in terms of efficiencies, making things faster. It'll
mm,
help making things, for example, AI is going to help us ensure things are compliant. I think that's going to be a great use for AI, because that's always a difficult thing in the automotive space. But it's not going to replace the actual overall strategy, and I don't think it ever will.
mm,
That's something that is unique per dealership. It changes month by month, quarter by quarter. But yeah, we are looking at AI as a tool to really build efficiencies and really help us avoid things like non-compliant ads. We want to be able to build in
mm,
things that can audit our campaigns for big changes in performance metrics, for example, that we won't always catch. We want to be able to predict, if we do this, what will the performance look like? So there are a lot of different things that we'll be
mm,
doing with AI. Another is going to be from an insights perspective. We want to be able to look at all of our performance metrics, and instead of having someone spend time saying, oh, well, this went up and this went down, so we should do this. AI can do that for us, and that's something that we'll be really focused on in the future. We'll be able to get
mm,
it to our clients faster. They're going to be
mm-hmm,
more consistent, because if we've got you know 15 different salespeople and 15 different account strategists, they all have a little bit different styles, which we want to make things, I don't want to say templated or more formatted, but we want to make sure that we're all thinking kind of the same way, and AI can help us do that.
mm. Man, it seems like the roadmap or like the life cycle of something is like let's solve an internal problem, like let's look at the trends, or let's for our internal business, let's put a process to it, let's automate that, and then let's productize it, and then we can put it out to the market. I mean, do you see that continuing to happen within within L2 Media or L2T Media? Sorry.
Absolutely. I think that's going to continue. I think that's going to be the path that, you know, not only, L2T will take, but, other companies and our competitors, just because that's going to be the way, technology is going to continue to move.
Mm-hmm.
The expectation is things are going to be better, faster, easier. And I
Mm,
don't know if any of those are going to truly be the case. I think at first it might be a little bit more complicated and a little bit more, who's going to be first at, getting into the market with a fully trained AI tool that can do all of these things.
mm.
Over time, it's going to change. There's going to be lots of adjustments, tweaks, and the technology itself is still very new. We're all still learning on what it can and can't do. We assume it can do anything. I think what we're going to find is, yeah, it can, but can it do anything well? Can it do everything well? And that's the piece that we
Yeah.
don't know yet.
Yeah, it's kind of like the finding the signal through the noise type of deal. I mean, speaking of which, like it seems like your focus is a lot on data, and let's find the first party data. If we have third party data, how do we clean it? Like what are the systems that we put our audiences through? Like which, I guess, in terms of like buying and conversion, like do you have any like signals that are still coming through strong in 2025 even with LLMs and, yeah, I guess everything climbing and becoming more complicated? What still makes sense as far as like buying signals in the especially in the automotive market?
Yeah, I mean, it's there's always going to be, very specific, signals to know people are in market. People who have a lease, for example, that's expiring in the next 6 months. They're probably in market for a new car, or
Yeah.
they're more likely to buy a new car. We look at things like people who move, people who purchase houses. Like these are all indicators that buying a car could be next. People who
Mm,
have just had kids or who have young kids, they may be in market for the SUV or the minivan.
mm,
Those traditional kind of indicators aren't going away. They're pretty, I would say, clear and obvious.
mm,
And they're not always correct, but again, directionally, that's kind of where you start. In terms of, other things like new college grads, a lot of times are getting their first car, or, looking at kind of, it's changing because a lot of people are less about getting cars now. A lot of,
mm.
millennials, a lot of, Gen Z, don't think they need a car. They're very, they grew up in the age of Uber and, Lyft, and to them, it's just easier not to have a car, not to pay for gas, not to pay for insurance. So
Yeah.
again, it's always looking at too, like which of the generations are really our target markets. We've always thought, all right, well, millennials are the
Mm.
next group that are gonna, have money and need cars, and but they're not always the ones who want the cars. So it's always kind of focusing on, you know, people who've had cars and kind of what their next car is, or their second car, their third car.
That is interesting. And like, I don't know, there was like a move to the city, if you look at like the past decades, right? A move to the city and then a move to the suburbs. And now it almost seems there's like a move back to the city where, yeah, we have transportation. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. They just opened up like a new railway. So it's interesting to see how marketing will shift as not only, SERPs and LLMs are shifting and people are looking for that, but actually the market as a whole and society as a whole. Man, so
Yeah,
so
we had
interesting.
obviously a huge spike the last couple of years in interest in EVs.
Mhm.
That's kind of waning now because the rebates are going away in a few days, actually, in the next week or so.
Oh, wow, yeah.
The expectation is that that's going to change significantly since the cost is going to go up for consumers.
Mhm.
Be very curious to see how in the next couple of weeks or months the market changes for EVs in general. When people think of EVs, they typically think of Tesla, but every major brand has at least, one or two models that are fully electric now at this point.
Mhm.
Consumers don't always know that. I mean, they do, search for more generically, electric vehicles or EVs. My guess is that's going to change significantly in the next, couple of months, and we'll see
Mhm.
how the manufacturers react. Is that something that they're going to pull back on, or still go all in, thinking that that is the way of the future? I mean, I think that just forces the manufacturers to find ways to make them cheaper, make them more efficient, or
Mm.
more affordable for people. When they will no longer have the $7,500 right off the bat that the
Yeah.
government was given for years.
Yeah, yeah, and combine that with there's the solar tax credit that's also going away at the end of the year. That's what moved me to Arizona was solar.
Mhm.
And it's kind of the same thing. It's like, man, what is everybody gonna do? Like, will things get cheaper in the future even without the government rebate? Who knows? It's crazy, man.
Yeah, I mean, the
So I
expectation is probably yes. Again, I think the battery technology for EVs is, it's not brand new. It's been around for a while now, but the expectation is like everything else, it's going to get better and cheaper and faster. And, you know, will it get to a point where an electric vehicle is at the same price or cheaper than a gas powered car? I don't think we know that yet, but I think the only way that that's going to succeed is it's got to get there. It's got to be on par at least. It's
mm.
got to give somebody a reason to want it beyond, I don't need to buy gas anymore.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm side note, I'm here in Sao Paulo and we are Ubering everywhere. Like
Yeah.
my fiance is from here. And there is an electric vehicle here called BYD.
Hmm.
It's a Chinese brand. And it's a competitor to Lucid. That's essentially their like top
Yeah.
competitor. But these cars are so nice and they're electric, fully electric. And they have all kinds of bells and whistles and they're like around 22,000 USD.
Hmm.
And they're like, yeah, like a Lucid is like a $75,000
Yeah.
car and it's like similar quality. So I'm wondering, what's going to happen, tariff wise or not, to bring those cars to the US.
Yeah, it's clear they can be made cheaper depending on where they're made, how they're
Clearly.
made. If the quality is there, I mean, people will catch on, and the individual consumer doesn't. I don't think, in my opinion, doesn't care where they're getting their car from.
Yeah.
If it's a reliable car that looks nice and gets them where they're going, if they could pay half what they pay for a Tesla or a Lucid or whatever, that's going to change, and it's going to change the marketplace pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Speaking of like not really caring about where the vehicle comes from, talk to me about like search attribution. Like where are people going? Everybody's, people that I talk to are saying like we need to get visibility on LLMs, but there's, we still know that the data is mostly still at Google. Like what are you seeing in terms of automotive search queries? Like what's happening on SERPs, what's happening in LLMs, and where are you guys focused to capture the market?
Yeah, I mean, the queries in auto, I think, are changing just like they are everywhere else. People are searching a lot more. I would say we used to say long tail, but they're not really long tail. I mean, people are searching as in questions or sentences now. They're typing
Mm,
more words, more phrases, more words in a search query. I mean, I do it myself all the time. I mean, everything I'm doing now, awful for my industry, but I'm assuming I'm going to get a response in the AI overview, and that's going to be good enough for me.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm typically asking questions when I'm searching online. Like if I'm looking for a product, totally different. But when
Yeah.
I'm searching, I'm typically someone's like, oh, who sings that song or what, whatever. So it's a quick question, which I could get that search AI overview. I don't need to go into a website. And that's a significantly better user experience. I don't want to have to click into a place and find the answer. I want the answer to be told to me, which from a retail or automotive perspective, that's changing pretty quickly too. Our dealers are constantly asking us, how do we make sure that we get involved or included organically in the AI overview? How do we get, our ads to show up in these AI overviews?
Mm,
And Google is adjusting to that. I mean, Google knows already that paid impressions are down significantly.
hmm
Paid clicks are rising for that reason. There's that same correlation, which isn't a great thing for us or for our dealers. But overall, Google likes the AI overview, but it takes away
hmm
from a lot of those paid clicks. So we know that Google's going to start adding paid content within those AI overviews, within AI mode. And it's just going to be a matter of how do we ensure that our ads are showing up in as many places as possible.
mm,
There's always going to be people who click on paid ads. There's always going to be people who will never click on paid ads. Like that's just kind of the way people operate. But how we change our strategy is to really think about, in order to show up in these AI overviews or AI, results, is to start thinking about how people's search trends are changing. And
mm,
it's not just about I want, do you have, it's not just about, for example, make model search queries. We need to start thinking about, do you have this make model and how much does it cost? Like really think
mm,
about, how we can really get involved in like being part of those answers and making sure that like Google knows, all right, well, yes, this person is asking about this specific vehicle and how much it costs. I see it on this dealer site. That's why I'm going to put it in this overview as an ad, as a paid ad.
hmm
So it's kind of really thinking about, like I was saying, how people are searching now compared to how they did years ago. But it's really
hmm
leaning into the AI tools or the AI features that these platforms offer.
mm,
Broad match keywords, PMAX, search AI max, all these things that Google is saying, you got to do these things if you're going to be, successful moving forward. And when Google says that, they're not just saying that because they want you to get great performance, they do, but that's where they know that the money is going to get spent. Google's saying that because
hmm
that's how Google's going to make more money. But if you're not kind of participating, following kind of what their strategies are, their best practices are, you're going to probably be left behind. And, more
mm,
traffic is going to end up in those AI overviews or in those AI mode places. And as Google continues to add more paid results there, we need to make sure that we can show up there as well. Because like I said, the standard or typical paid impressions are going away, or not going away, but they're just reducing. And that makes it harder and harder to get the same traffic and the same results that we've been getting or we're used to be getting.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, we hear a lot of talk about like attribution is getting messier, click through rates are like not as strong anymore with LLMs. I'm curious what you guys look for as far as like KPIs that still move the needle. I mean, there's a bunch of things that we could measure, but like what are you guys measuring and what are you reporting to the dealership clients where you're like, hey, yes, we got a bunch of impressions. That's amazing. It used to mean that we have a huge top of funnel, but it doesn't necessarily mean that anymore. Like, Yeah, what signals are you looking for in that respect? Like, what are you measuring?
Yeah, I mean, we really focus on conversion rate and cost per lead as our, I would say, core indicators of success. Total leads is important. We still look at things like cost per click and click through rate, and that's really just directional for us. We know what we're trying to or what our goals are in terms of a cost per conversion or a cost per lead. So typically, if our CPCs increase, it's a huge deal. But lately, we've been seeing those CPCs are increasing in a significantly enough way where our clients are saying, I don't want to pay this much for this click. And they're starting to get
Yeah.
hyper focused on that, which again isn't that important. Like it shouldn't be if they're still getting the conversions at the cost that they should. But that's something that we have to pay attention to. It's something that we need to
Mhm.
be aware of because as we make recommendations or we make changes, we can't say, oh, well, Google made this change and we can't manage to that CPC anymore. Like our
Yeah.
clients want to hear that. If they've
Yeah.
been paying $3 or $2 or whatever per click for 5 years and now they're paying $4, to them, that's lost opportunity. They think they're not
Mm.
getting as many clicks because they're paying more, even though everything in the world has gone up in price. Things like clicks, they shouldn't go up in price ever. So again, that's something we have to watch. But ultimately, we're looking at how many total leads that we're providing each month. What are those costs per those leads, and what our conversion rate is. That's really what we look at in terms of optimization, because that's what's most important to our clients is getting quality traffic that converts to leads. Our dealers have a pretty good sense of. Some have a better sense of others on the quality of the leads or like the different types of leads, like which are better quality for them. But most of them will say, no matter how many leads we get, you could look at the quality low to high. We're going to convert 10% or 20% into, customers. So that's why they
Mhm.
just want the most leads because they know you give us 100, we're going to convert 10. You give us 200, we're going to convert 20.
Mm.
They kind of look at it that way. So it's not that we're trying to deliver, lesser quality leads, but that's just kind of part of the game. It's going to happen. What we're trying to do
Mhm.
is deliver leads that are traffic that was targeted to the right people with the right ad content. So the people clicking are high quality. And then ultimately we'll either call a dealership, submit a form, chat with them, et cetera. Do something where the
Mm.
dealer can collect that contact information and make sure that they've got a way to follow up and hopefully get them into the dealership.
And a lot of that has to do, like, if we're talking about cost per acquisition, it means there has to be some sort of sale, like from the
Right.
dealership. Obviously, you guys aren't doing sales training. You're not running Cardone University or anything
Right.
for the dealerships. What sort of metrics do you ask from your clients to report back to you to let you know, like, that you guys are doing the right thing? And what's that
Yeah, I mean,
feedback look
we
like?
we we try to get sales data from really every dealership, and that's definitely. And some will share it with us, some won't. Some will just
Hmm.
say sales were great, sales were bad. But the
Hmm.
more information that we get from them
Yeah.
makes it easier for us to adjust our strategies. So dealers who are very open and share their sales data with their sales rep or their account strategist on a monthly basis, that's a very sometimes easy, sometimes hard conversation to have. But it's also it's not the easiest thing in the world to tie or completely attribute your media to your sales. Basically, there's
Sure.
a piece in the middle where the rep at the dealership has to reach out, has to talk to that person. That person's got to come to the dealership and meet with the right salesperson and get the right price.
Mm.
There's a lot of factors there. And that's why I said like that 10 to 20% or whatever that number is, dealers kind of know
Hmm.
what that is. They take all those factors into account. But we like to know, if we have whether it's a really great month from a media perspective or a lesser month, we like to know, okay, well, but how are your sales? Because overall, the
Mm.
continuous advertising, that's what's going to help the dealerships. We actually learned this way back in 2020 when the pandemic first hit and a lot of dealerships had to close down at least temporarily. Dealers panicked, they weren't going to get any customers. The thing is people always need to buy cars. Like that's not ever going to go away. And what we found was dealers who significantly cut their spend or reduced it completely compared to those who kept spending at the normal rates. When the world opened up again, when the dealerships opened up again, those who are spending all along were the ones who had the great sales. Those
Mm.
who weren't spending saw that there was a lag or there was,
Mm.
it took them longer to kind of get back to those levels that they were because again, people weren't necessarily aware or, it's a longer sales process. They weren't, that was like the perfect time when people were home, not, being able to go out and do a lot of things to be doing that research, to be looking online to figure out who's got the cars, what they cost and wait until those dealerships opened up again.
Mm.
you know, the constant, advertising, constant awareness of kind of what's available and making consumers aware of what's available is really important. And that, you may have a poor month from a performance perspective on your media, but that doesn't mean you're going to have a poor sales month. there's,
Mm.
a lot of things that, correlate. Unfortunately, it's hard to correlate, that one to one, you clicked on this ad and bought a car.
Mhm.
We do know that, the advertising works because we're targeting the right people. And that's really, it comes back to what we started talking about is if you're reaching the right people, it's going to help you get to your goal of selling cars.
The first party data, baby. Bring it back. Bring it
Absolutely.
right back. That's awesome, man. As we wrap it up here, where can we find more about Jeff Kaufman and what you do at L2T Media?
Yeah, L2Tmedia.com. It is, we've been in business for almost 20 years now. I've been with the company almost 13 years. I've got a substantial background in digital media. The last 13 in automotive, but I've worked in other spaces as well. Both on the agency and client side. But yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, like my focus is, primarily on automotive digital media. We're highly focused, for right now and moving into 2026 on first party data, our CDP, Audience Pro, as well as making use of AI to find more efficiencies, better performance, and ultimately building new products that can help our clients, really understand how we can tie more of that media spend, more of that media, and attribute it to sales and repair orders down the line.
Yeah. I love that. So L2T, that's the number two
Yes.
T. Yeah, media.com.
Yeah.
Cool. Jeff, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate our conversation here.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.